evening to all the dignitaries present on and off the dais. Thank you for the opportunity. I'll not take much time. I'll try to finish in 20 minutes, being mindful of the shortage of time. Okay, so mindfulness, otherwise called insight meditation, like Sir has already said, we look inwardly and see things as they are. So that's the triangle of mindfulness, where you're aware of the self, you're attentive, and you're accepting. I'll elaborate on that. Mindfulness in Sanskrit translates to smriti. Smriti means remembering. Remembering that you have to come back to the present moment. Past is already over, the future is yet to be seen, so let's try to live in the present. And that's the Chinese character for mindfulness. It has two parts, the upper part meaning now and the lower part meaning mind or the heart. Okay, so that's the official definition of mindfulness, is a moment-to-moment awareness which is non-judgmental, open, friendly, and curious. The attitude of acceptance, one of the A's in mindfulness, is not passively accepting that, okay, everything will be fine, but it actually means that you're inviting experiences even if they are painful. So you will just be aware of the experiences, not be judgmental, try not to label them as pain, hurt, and just accept as they are. There are several mindfulness-based intervention, MBIs in short. Most famous being MBSR, which was first introduced by Professor Jon Kabat-Zinn, and MBCT by Segal, Teasdale, and colleagues. So these two programs are the basis on which all other mindfulness-based interventions were adapted. So most of the programs have 8 to 10 week sessions with a 2-week retreat period. A 1 or 2 day retreat period. Having said that, Sir, while introducing, said it's a very Eastern concept, started from Zen Buddhism. Thich Nhat Hanh, that's how he's pronounced. He is a Vietnamese Buddhist. Many of us would have read his book, The Miracle of Mindfulness. So he's a Zen master. Rather, he was physically present until Jan 2022. He's no more amidst us. So he had these 5 mindfulness training. There is an exclusive website, thichnathart.com, where you see 5 mindfulness trainings in which he believes that each one of us who form the community and the world and the universe at large can contribute to being mindful. So the first of his mindfulness training involves, we have to protect life, to decrease violence amongst self, family, and society, to practice social justice, responsible sexual behavior, practice of deep listening. That's probably one of the characteristics we all must imbibe. And mindful consumption in the literal sense of food. Mindful consumption of food as well as information, which doesn't bring toxins into our body and mind. The picture here is Professor Jon Kabat-Zinn himself. He is a professor of medicine in the US, and he is a mindfulness enthusiast. So his first study was a 10-week MBSR program. MBSR is mindfulness-based stress reduction program, where he gave training to people who had chronic pain associated with general medical conditions. And this program improved general vitality in chronic pain patients. The only defect in this study was there was no control group when it was done earlier, around 1970s, 1980s. So thereafter, the studies in mindfulness-based started adopting a control group as well. Next, I come to MBCT. There will be a slide which will compare mindfulness-based cognitive therapies and cognitive behavioral therapy. So we should know the difference. What is mindful-based and what is cognitive-based? So MBCT consists of 8 sessions. And again, it's meditation, which I'll be taking you through in a few minutes from now. Homework is an essential element like CBT, where there will be 45 minutes guided meditation sessions, which will be given to the clients. And MBCT also includes cognitive therapy sessions. The difference will be coming up. In MBCT, this is one of the most important scientific mechanism, putative mechanism. One is we are in one of these modes, either in doing mode or being mode. More often we are in the doing mode. The doing mode is where you are reacting. You are behavior driven. You are very conscious. You are driven to success. You want to achieve. And you are continuously answering, while the being mode is diametrically opposite. You just be in a relaxed state. You are aware, you are insightful, you are driven by values, and that leads to a transformation within the self. So the MBCT works by enhancing the being mode, which is otherwise called metacognitive awareness. So the difference between MBCT and CBT. MBCT is thought process focused, how the thoughts come and go. They are observed like probably leaves on a stream is a common comparison that is used in ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy. So it's a process focused, while CBT is content focused. So the thought is labeled as a hard thought, as a not as a dysfunctional thought or as a negative thought, while MBCT doesn't do that. MBCT sees thoughts as thoughts. That's it. Versus CBT, which sees it as a statement of fact. And the interventions in MBCT help us develop present moment awareness. So if I'm presenting now, I'm thinking only of presenting now. I'm not thinking of what banquet is going to offer for me. While behavioral interventions on the CBT reinforce adaptive responses, which means CBT identifies dysfunctional thoughts. They are written in your thought diary, and you tell the clients, try to replace it with a more productive thought. So the thought content is the most important part in CBT, while thought process is important in MBCT. And in MBCT, while we do along with the client, we also embody the approach. While in CBT, it's very unidirectional, it's very didactic. I tell you that this is a hot thought, I identify it, and I dictate and you do it. So it's a very instructive process, while MBCT is very collaborative, where both of us work together. And when we do mindfulness-based interventions for clients, we also benefit. So the other interventions that are there, I'll quickly go through it. MBSR for teens, okay? MBSR for relapse prevention for people who have issues with addiction. MARS is a mindfulness awareness and resilience program for adolescents. For psychological distress, see, with adolescents and kids, we have limited array of pharmacological techniques. So mindfulness is a very, very useful proven technique which can help kids and adolescents. Then mindfulness-based self-compassion required for most of us in this profession. MB Eat, which is for specifically designed for binge eating disorder, though we are yet to have enough scientific evidence to say that it can act as a standalone treatment. And how MBSR or MBCT helps people with chronic pain to improve is it disengages from pain-related threat, extinction of fear conditioning. So you repeatedly expose them to the fear and then there is extinction. So behavioral extinction is a process. Acceptance-based coping strategies, which is the hallmark of any mindfulness-based intervention. So I'll go, scientific terms that we need to know while doing any mindfulness-based technique is the DMN, default mode network, and TPN, task positive network. So the default mode network is usually on. So it's a default mode. So I am in a default mode. I am doing what, like Sir said, it's called the autopilot mode. So when I'm driving from workplace to home, I know how many twists and turns are there. I know how many traffics I have to jump and all those things. So that's a default mode network, which is the autopilot, which is on. And if you want to activate the TPN, that is when you should mindfully engage in an activity. And both these networks don't work simultaneously. So when the default mode network is on, the TPN is off. And when the TPN is on, the default mode network is off. What we are actually concerned is to more often switch on the TPN, because the TPN helps us perform better, and also it helps us in a sense of self-gratitude. The other terms are trait mindfulness. So there are these group of people who tend to have mindfulness as a trait, as a genetic trait. But what training sessions has proved is that anyone who does not have the trait doesn't have to worry. You can develop this as a trait through mindfulness-based training. And higher the training, higher the trait mindfulness that you develop, the default mode network will be less active. So this is the default mode network, which is primarily the medial prefrontal cortex and the posterior cingulate cortex. So the default mode network, what it does is, it helps us ruminate about the past and plan about the future. So we need the default mode network. That doesn't mean that I totally switch off the default mode network and I'm always hyperactive with the TPN and I can do excellently well. No, that's not how it is. So the default mode network is also required because based on past experiences, we can plan our future. But in conditions like depression and anxiety, the default mode network is often on. So you're ruminating about the past when depressed, and you're contemplating and getting anxious about the future when having an anxiety disorder. So we need to switch off the DMN for these disorders and switch on the task positive network. So in the task positive network, our direct line is to maintain mindfulness and present moment. And in the TPN, the worry and sadness cannot survive. That's a rule. So how do I activate TPN? At the end of the session, probably if this can be your take-home message, how to activate TPN, go for a walk, sense your breath, or engage in a conversation with a friend. Your TPN is active, and you would have overpowered the DMN, not by an active effort, but by just talking to a friend who knows you well. For every one of us in this field or any field of science, we need scientific evidence. So here are the neurophysiological correlates for mindfulness-based techniques. Most of the brain regions key to meta-awareness are the frontopolar cortex, body awareness is insular cortex, and intra-hemisphere communication through the superior longitudinal fasciculus. All these brain regions have lit up post even a 10-minute mindfulness exercise. And with regard to EEG, we all know that theta is a slow wave. It helps us keep calm. And so after a 10-minute of probably a breathing exercise or a stop technique, which I'll be telling in a few minutes from now, it will increase the theta power. So you are at a more calm state. So the blue on the second side, which is after. So this is before a 10-minute mindfulness meditation, and this is after. So the red areas are all really hot, beaming with beta activity. And the blue area, which is here, is theta, which is very low. And once the activity is done, there is more of blue. So there are more of slow waves. You are able to attend to what you're doing more mindfully. And this is a very important slide for me. So I'll take about a minute to explain. So what functional neuroimaging supports is there are two distinct modes of selves. One is the narrative self and one is the experiential self. So the narrative self is the self of the DMN. That means with past experiences and with future expectations, the narrative self-reference is there. So it's very memory-based, while the experiential is momentary-based, which is the task positive network. So these neuroimaging studies have shown that prior to any person who has no exposure to meditation, mindfulness meditation or any meditation, who had a lot of narrative self-reference, with a 10-minute meditation, he moved on from the narrative is DMN, which is medial. It moves, the signals move from the medial to the lateral. Systematic reviews on RCTs have also revealed that mindfulness reduces the level of inflammatory markers, which include a neurotropic factor kappa beta, and increases the level of protective markers, which is CD4 cell count. Approved indications, if we see, we have only, it can be a standalone in mild depression and mild anxiety, while with moderate and severe, along with pharmacotherapy, it is approved. So when it comes to special population, especially with pregnancy, mindfulness interventions have shown to reduce perinatal anxiety, the effect size being moderate to large. But with perinatal depression, the effect size was small. So we can integrate mindfulness in, probably obstetrics and gynecology clinics telling our obstetric gynecology colleagues so that they can help them with simple techniques, which I'll be briefing, so as to at least reduce the incidence of postpartum and peripartum depression and anxiety. With late life depression, evidence shows like along with TAU, that is treatment as usual, late life depression more than 60 years, along with medication, MBCT even for 60 years and above has helped. With stress, the effect is moderate. With regards to others, that is the areas of agreement on where MBI's mindfulness-based interventions can be used are the following, that is depression, anxiety, stress, insomnia, addiction, psychosis, pain. While for controversial areas where still research needs to be done is PTSD, ADHD and ASD, and eating disorders, there is a little proof, but it is not very convincing. So the next few slides will be about learning how to do mindfulness for our own selves. So we'll start. Body scan meditation will take usually about 30 minutes. So it's like JPMR. In JPMR, that is Jacobson's progressive muscle relaxation, we actively contract and relax each group of muscles starting from toe to head or vice versa. While in body scan meditation, we just observe. So the first step is, step one, make yourself comfortable. You can be sitting or you can be lying down on your back. You can close your eyes or open as per convenience and start breathing slowly. So the point number 3, where you start from your feet, what you do is you actually just mentally observe the sensation that is happening in both your feet, both right and left at the same time. Acknowledge the sensation, take deep breaths, see if there is pain or there is twitching or there is a feeling of relaxedness. Whatever the feeling is, just accept it, breathe into the organ, go ahead with the next. So you move from your feet to the ankle, to the calf, to the knee and upwards. So slowly move your focus to different parts of the body. What you need to remember here is, as we are human beings, we tend to drift. As we are doing body scan meditation, we'll be like, okay, the session is going to get over in probably 30 minutes. I have to go to office next. So our thoughts tend to drift over to other events which are going to follow our life. So please make a note of them. Yes, I am drifting, and let me try to bring back my attention to what I'm doing currently. Visualize the tension relieving, go to the next organ, and once you're done from foot to head, you can generally visualize your whole body with eyes closed or eyes open as per convenience, and then return back to the world. That's a technique which will take about 30 minutes, where you can have guided meditation guides, which will help you do that. This is by far the most easiest at-hand technique. Breathe and smile. That's the handwriting of Professor Thich Nhat Hanh. He is a calligraphist himself. So what he did was, he said, no matter how you feel right now, you can take a pause. What emotions you are feeling, it might be of frustration, it might be of disgust, it might be of anger. Right now here, we are waiting for dinner, we are looking forward to moving out, and so many other things. So we can wait. Do not label any emotion as good, bad, or anything. Breathe in for a few seconds, breathe out, focus on your breath, and this is your present moment. The other techniques are, one is sober. Sober stands for, S stands for stop, O for observe, B for breathe, E for expand. And once you expand, the idea of expansion is, see, SOB, it's a very common technique. You will stop whatever activity you're doing. It can be anything. When you feel stressed, you feel your muscles are aching in the shoulder, you feel you have attended a lot of OPD patients today, or you feel you have had a hectic grand rounds, just stop for a second, observe how your body is responding, breathe in, breathe out, expand the breathing to your whole body. And now the last one is respond. Earlier, before doing the sober or before doing a stop technique, we would have been reacting. The difference between reaction and response is, reaction is when a ball is thrown at you, you immediately tend to catch it or move away from it. Where response is, You calculate what's happening, and then you decide your way of action. So what mindfulness does is change our quality from reaction to response. Response is more calculated, is more awareness based. And walking meditation primarily involves in any walking. While you go for a morning walk, if you have time in your track, please remove your shoes and sock and feel your heel, palm and toes touch the ground. Every time you walk, breathe into it, take a step, breathe out, take a step. That will be your walking meditation. These are things which can be easily taught to kids as young as 5 to 7 years. So when you feel too tired at the end of the day, just close your eyes, count on 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can feel, 3 things that you can hear, 2 that you can smell, and 1 that you can taste. So that's grounding. It keeps me grounded. It gives me a sense that I am alive. All my senses are working, so that's grounding. And stop, most famous technique, most easily practiced. Stop what you're doing, take a breath, observe your thoughts, feelings, emotions, and physical pain, if any, and proceed. Proceed is, again, respond, not react. Proceed with single thing in a focus. Probably a few years earlier, we were like, multitasking is the key. So a person who multitasks is supposed to be doing very well. But mindfulness teaches us the reverse. One task at a time. So when I'm doing one task, I will do only that. So if I'm drinking a cup of tea, it will hardly take 5 to 7 minutes. Might as well finish the cup of tea and go ahead with the work. So if I'm checking mails, I'm checking only mails and not responding to anything else. This is called box breathing or square breathing. You inhale for 4 counts, hold it for 4, exhale for 4, and again hold it for 4. So that's a square. The benefits is it brings balance, it restores your natural rhythm, and of course, the idea of mindfulness to help you heal. The next slide is probably one of my favorite slides, and I'll be ending in probably 2 to 3 minutes from now. LKM, loving kindness meditation. So all this we have been doing for ourselves. What do we do for others? LKM, loving kindness meditation. Find a comfortable place, close your eyes. If you can do that now, I'll be grateful. Find a place, close your eyes. Generate feelings of love and kindness towards yourself. Once you feel loved, send it to a neutral person. Send the love for a difficult person. It might be me as well. And send the love to the whole universe. So while doing loving kindness meditation, that is one of the slogans that we can repeat in cycles of 2. May I be happy. May I be well. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I be loved. So this is for me. May the universe be happy. May all of you be well. May all of you be healthy. May all of you be safe. And may all of you be loved. Mindfulness is not restricted to any one of us. It's for any person who knows they are alive. That's it. So if I'm alive, I can be thankful for being alive. So in healthcare settings, it's very important because we see a lot of burnout among doctors, among nurses, among all healthcare staff. So we can have, probably like there is a sudden announcement of code blue in the hospital. Once the code blue is over, we can take a 5-minute mindful break to help the healers who have attended the code blue heal faster. At schools, there is a lot of evidence for school-based mindfulness techniques abroad. They are being followed now in India as well. So a small time as 18 minutes per day of mindfulness for a kid allowed the kid to engage more friendly with the teachers, with the colleagues, and also it helped in improving their academic performance. Of course, workplace is similar to the healthcare setting. These are my references. And I would like to read that out. Sometimes I forget to thank the people who make my life happy in so many ways. Sometimes I forget to tell them how much I really appreciate them for being an important part of life. So thank you all of you for just being there for me. I would wish if, just for a second, Um, this is my mindfulness practice, which I've been trying to do for about 3 to 4 years. Every morning when I get up, lying on the couch, I would just thank all my body parts, head to foot, all my internal organs, head to foot, because if they wouldn't work when I was sleeping, I would have been dead by now. So please take time to thank yourself more often. Hopefully that will help us be more productive to our patients and be kind to them. Thank you so much. Sir, 1 minute. Sorry, I forgot to thank the chairpersons, especially Dr. Balaguru, who, without fail, he would post a message every day, thought for the day. It enriches my life. Thank you, sir.